Hi, everybody. We're starting to look this week at inductive reasoning, which is a very, very common form of reasoning from specific instances to a general idea. It's used a lot in science, it's used in law, it's used in moral reasoning, it's used everywhere. And this week we're focusing on a type of reasoning which is reasoning by analogies, or it's analogical reasoning, it's sometimes called. And I called this video Courage in the Face of Death because I want to give you a very famous example of analogical reasoning to show why we should not fear death. This example is very, very old. It was written by Plato in a dialogue called The Apology. Plato was a philosopher. He lived from 428 to 348 BC, so that was before Christ, a long, long time ago. 2,300 years ago, I guess, 2,400 years ago. And in this particular piece of philosophic writing, he has a character named Socrates, who was Plato's actual teacher in Athens, ancient Athens. He has him on trial, which actually did happen. Socrates was on trial, and he was sentenced to death. And at the end of this dialogue, Socrates uses analogical reasoning to show the jury who've just convicted him and sentenced him to death why he has no fear of death and why they should have no fear of death. And here are the analogies he uses. He says basically, look, we say that death is either annihilation or it is a migration to another place. If those are the two options for death, they are analogous to two things. If death is annihilation, it's analogous to a dreamless sleep. And really, there's no need to fear a dreamless sleep. As a matter of fact, many of us would welcome a dreamless sleep as something that is pleasant and rewarding. So, hey, that doesn't sound like anything to fear. On the other hand, if death is a migration to another place, right, another realm of consciousness, well, more than likely, that realm is going to be very interesting. It might be an afterlife filled with all of the fascinating Greek heroes. Maybe you'd get a chance to meet Achilles. Maybe you'd get a chance to meet a few Greek gods while you were there. It could be really interesting. Even if the people there are not quite so positive, there might be some really other interesting things to experience. So that doesn't sound so scary, really. That sounds like welcome and interesting and something you might like to do. So there's really no need to fear death if death is a migration. Sounds pretty good. So those are the analogies that Socrates uses to show that there is no need to fear death. Now, I know what you're thinking. He didn't look at all the possible analogies, and you're right about that. Because what if the migration to another place is a migration to a tremendously horrible place of pain? Well, you couldn't really like that, could you? And what if annihilation, rather than being like a dreamless sleep, is more like being under anesthesia while you're in surgery? And that's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. There's not even the slightest hint of conscious experience in that. And it isn't really something to look forward to. It's like a zero. You know, zero isn't necessarily what you want. So, to be fair, Socrates didn't do a perfect job on this at all. He only kind of presented what he wanted to present. But the point is, he used argument from analogy, inductive reasoning from analogy, to prove his point that one should have courage and not fear death. So, try it out with some of your own beliefs.